Now it gives me a great pleasure to introduce our next speaker. As I said earlier, regulator support is so important to the ACP public-private partnership, and we could not do our work and be successful as we are without strong support from the CAC and the FAA. The FAA actually is the co-chair of the ACP Public-Private Partnership Program and was very instrumental in bringing the public partnership forward in China. And it is a unique model. So it gives me a pleasure right now to introduce Robert Ruiz. He's the Director, Office of General Aviation Safety Assurance, Flight Standard Service, Federal Aviation Administration. Robert's going to be talking about safety management systems in business aviation and best practices. Please join me in welcome Robert. 谢谢.
Good morning and thank you. I need to adjust my audio here. So thank you. Thank you to the ACP for hosting, to AsBAA for the sponsorship, and to my colleagues at the CAAC. It's nice to see you, even virtually, certainly better in person. But as always, a pleasure to hear you speak, and thank you for taking the time. Again, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak at this event on behalf of the FAA and share the progress of the FAA's Safety Management System in Business Aviation Initiative. Safety Management System, or SMS, has really become a game changer for us. SMS, as stated before, shifts some of the regulator's historical functions to the operator. In large part, it is no longer a case of carriers asking for FAA permission. Instead, we expect, the expectation is that the operators develop an intended course of action to include identifying hazards, assessing the risk, and plans to mitigate those risks. This paramount shift in some of the regulator's functions is a result of the FAA's trust in large general aviation operators and small commercial operators. But trust works in both directions. It is a partnership with all involved, much like the ACP. Partnership allows us to do many things and achieve great possibilities. So the key to the SMS program standard in the FAA is that it's derived from a process-based regulation. So it is regulation-based. That is, there's a set of safety management and safety assurance processes are required, but the methods by which the processes are accomplished are left to the operator. This leaves a great amount of flexibility for the operator to tailor their SMS processes to be, in the language of ICAO Annex 19, commensurate with the size of the service provider and the complexity of its aviation products or services. What does that mean? And I think that is key, so just to spend a little time on that. Everyone thinks SMS is a big program, a big computer system, a big virtual tablet enabler to be able to analyze this. In reality, SMS is documenting the risks, identifying them, resolving how to mitigate against them, and then carrying it out. That's it. So it can be simple or it can be as complex, depending on the operation. But the key is, finding those risks and mitigating them in a systemic fashion. In short, industry acts and the FAA validates this. This is SMS, and it's just one of the tools of the FAA's risk-based decision-making initiative. The other is our compliance policy, which provides important guidance for both the FAA and industry. First, compliance is not just a matter of requiring everybody to follow existing rules. At its heart, it challenges all of us to engage in proactive risk management. Operators must be willing and able to use proactive risk management to deal with issues we cannot address through regulations. They must look at how entire systems function in addressing safety risk and not just be on the lookout for a specific event or its outcome. Proactive risk management includes practices and procedures that encourage useful reporting, To get that kind of reporting, we need communication, cooperation, and collaboration. And all of those are both ways. Again, it's not just the operators doing all of this, it's the regulators and industry collaborating in a dual fashion. Both the regulator and the operator have to understand the difference between accountability, which accepts responsibility and looks forward, and blame, which focuses on punishment for what's already happened. With accountability, we look at the operator's compliance attitude. If a deviation is unintentional or accidental, we first try to resolve the issue with positive corrective action, like training or improved procedures, or maybe nothing at all. It could be something as someone forgot their medical. We're not going to retrain them. We're not going to do improved procedures because the regulation states have your medical, but we do document it. And documenting it and keeping track of all these things, both for the operator and the FAA, allow us to see if this is a continual issue. And that's the change. That's where the flip is from accountability to enforcement. Enforcement is a tool and is reserved for reckless and inappropriate risk-taking behaviors, or for those who are unwilling or unable to comply. Right? So in the example of the medical, if I leave my medical every single time at home and never carry it with me, now I'm being unable to comply, or I really don't want to, and now I'm unwilling. So those are the things where the FAA is now using their enforcement tool to really look at those and concentrate on the operators or people that are unwilling or unable to comply. So the compliance policy we have adopted is a simple idea, but it has many moving parts that require attention to detail by both government and industry. I'm happy to report that we have made significant progress. As the compliance policy has matured, we see evidence of growing trust, transparency, and effective use of SMS by both air carriers and flight standards. Here are a few examples I'd want to share with you. Upon discovering that some pilots had flown as required crew members without the necessary proficiency checks, one operator took immediate action to resolve the issue and work cooperatively with us, the FAA, to prevent reoccurrence. Right? And addressed it in a systemic way. It wasn't just the two crew members need to be qualified. Well, everybody knows they need to be qualified. But what allowed that to happen in the cockpit? Was it a scheduling issue? Did the pilot know and just not say anything? So again, it's looking at the system and why it happened to prevent it again. The second example talks about identifying, after identifying a new tire had been installed on an aircraft prior to the flight, right? So the flight crew could tell that the tire had been changed. They noticed that there was no record of the tire change in the maintenance log for the aircraft. The flight crew for this company were not aware of a separate log for maintenance done on an aircraft. And this occurred because this was contract maintenance. So it wasn't in the company logbook, but it was in the contract maintenance logbook. So the recommendation from the Safety Report Event Review Committee to the company was to develop a system for crews to be aware of maintenance completed on an aircraft that was not entered into the aircraft maintenance log on the aircraft. So the recommendation helped the company to develop a procedure where before every trip rotation, the crew calls maintenance control and completes a book report of all maintenance items as discussed. This process has helped eliminate flights with open write-ups or overdue maintenance. This has been very useful for aircraft that come out of contract maintenance. It directs the crew's focus on the areas that the contract maintenance provider worked on and to double check that all panels and equipment are installed and working correctly. And it also gives them that information. The next incident that we have is flight crews consistently reported that one of their fleets experienced numerous flap overspeeds. So again, looking into it, the flap handle and the spoiler handle on this aircraft are almost exactly the same in shape and size. So multiple flap overspeed events occurred when the crews reached for the spoilers and accidentally selected the flap handle and extended the flaps. So the flaps were extended at a higher speed. If the flap handle was moved and the crew caught the error before the flaps deployed and returned the flaps to the up position, the aircraft recorded the overspeed anyways. So even though they selected the handle for flaps, they were able to catch it and bring it back before the flaps had deployed. But even so, the aircraft's maintenance log or the maintenance tracker recorded the overspeed. So again, maintenance had to be done. To eliminate the overspeed, the Safety Report Event Review Committee recommended a simple verification of the flap handle or the spoiler handle by the pilot monitoring before either one is deployed. The standard operating procedure for this aircraft was revised to include the recommendation, and overspeed occurrences have now been eliminated. So again, it's not only saved money, but it has also saved an improper procedure from occurring. In the last example, one of our general aviation safety assurance offices worked closely with a local aviation community, and some of those partners, MBAA, DUDCAR, is one of those in our aviation community that have helped us with this problem of illegal charters. So these are operators that are carrying people for hire, but they don't have the proper operator certification. It's not a very common problem, but it is a problem. And so we addressed it with a team in a partnership between the FAA, industry, airports, and other partners there to try to spearhead this movement that eventually led to proposed changes in state law and development of standardized procedures. It also included increased information sharing and outreach to industry and the general public. Again, with a partnership, we can accomplish many things. So lastly, what I want to ask you, and I know I won't get an answer, is what did these events have in common? And you heard earlier from Chairman Sumwalt from the NTSB. Well, none of this information that I've shared with you came from an accident or an incident investigation. It all came from being self-disclosed with the operator to provide a systemic fix. Could these, so what I ask is, could any of these have led to an accident or incident? And not just for the example in the tire, right? That wasn't in the logbook, but could that have happened with a more vital component on an aircraft that could have led to an incident or an accident? So again, understanding the system and how complex it is, being able to address these things and gather information that we otherwise would not have gotten through an accident or incident investigation, right? That is self-disclosed by the operator or the crewman, really feeds the information to both the FAA industry in making aviation safer. So we see other areas of growing transparency, such as notable increases in submission to SMS-based reporting programs. SMS-based reporting programs are anonymous. Well, I would say some are anonymous and some aren't, but they provide for both options. But they do not carry penalties of reprisal. This further strengthens the trust between participating parties. The data submitted in SMS-based reporting programs is invaluable, as it is used to correct identified safety hazards and risks and potential risks. So for the last fiscal year, in which we have full data, submissions to the aviation safety reporting system in the last full fiscal year increased by 5% for a total of over 146,000 submissions. Submissions to the voluntary disclosure reporting program increased by 11% with over 2,300 reports. There were over 143 submissions to the Aviation Safety Action Partnership Programs, ASAP. That's a 21% increase since fiscal year 2019. FAA Administrator Dixon has sketched out a blueprint that applies to the FAA and industry. He has emphasized our common goals of safety and continuous improvement, and he has articulated some values that build trust, starting with honesty, integrity, respect, perseverance, and servant leadership. As a public and entity, the FAA does that. We have servant leadership. And just recently, the FAA has implemented its own voluntary safety reporting system for its own employees. The FAA has had systems like this before, but this is the first one where there's real accountability, trackability in once these hazards or information is identified to then go out and resolve them within the FAA. So a big step also for us, and hopefully we'll have many successes. Administrator Dixon has made it clear that these are values the FAA will use in everything we do to perform our safety assurance work. I will again state what I said at the beginning as I wrap up. Trust is key for these systems, and accepting that safety is a partnership is the bedrock for all of this. So on behalf of myself and the FAA, I want to thank you. I also want to thank my own team who's here helping me and supporting me to stay on track. I want to wish you all safe times with COVID. We've all been battling it for a long time now, and hopefully things are starting to turn. But again, I just ask that you all stay safe. And again, thank you for the opportunity to talk and address to you today. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and thank you.
Robert, thank you very much, and thank you for preparing your excellent presentation. And the only regret I have, as I said before to others, is I wish you could be with us here. But with that, I hope you will come here soon, and you have a lot of information to share. Now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, and Director